Hello. Well, today I'm finally talking about this film that I wanted to see in theaters but was unable to, which I will get to after I give my overall thoughts on the film itself, and that is Scream 7. And I got the Steelbook version. Um, and I have some stuff here written, notes, so that I can give my overall thoughts a bit proper. Um, this film begins with a couple named Scott and Madison going to Stu Macher's old house, as it's sort of like like a tourist attraction, because serial killer used to live there, and then also some people were killed there. Um, and there's listening to a podcast that Stu may have not died. He got a TV to the head in the first film, so you know rumors of that going on in universe. And after being there for a bit, they were eventually killed by Ghostface because, of course. And then the Ghostface proceeds to burn the whole house down. And yeah, and from there we go to Pine Grove, Indiana, where Sidney Prescott, now last name Evans, is married to the chief of police named Mark, and she runs a coffee shop. And she has three kids, though two of them are not really in the film. They're with like Mark's parents, at least his mom, in Colorado, if I recall correctly. That's where they are. So very young, and her oldest child is a daughter named Tatum, obviously named after her best friend from the first film. And Tatum has a boyfriend named Ben that Sydney is not, big, you know, isn't the biggest fan of. Especially since he came in through her bedroom window, like in the very first film with Billy and Sydney. And yeah, soon, eventually, we see her going about her day. Sydney, and how we see some of the neighbors, like Jessica and her son Lucas, at the coffee shop, as well as a man who's fairly creepy. Um, and she's in the office when she gets a call from Ghostface, who then requests a FaceTime thing, like, just one of those guys who uses a voice changer and is, too afraid to reveal who they are, and so she accepts the FaceTime, and it's Stu Macher, older and has scars, and so that's quite frightening, and we find that Tatum and her friends, they're in a play at school, or they're involved in a play, and yeah, soon, after that, her daughter, herself, family, and Tatum's friends are obviously targeted, and after this, after a while, they decided that might be safe after the police search the home. That it would be good if they basically leave for a while. So, Mark seems to be bent on staying since he's the chief of police, but at least Sydney and Tatum will leave. So they're gathering things, and then Ghostface comes from the attic. And eventually starts attacking them. And eventually, after, stabbing through the wall, Sydney and Tatum are leaving from the safe room to being able to get downstairs and out of the house safely. Eventually, obviously they get out, and Mark got attacked, and he's fighting off Ghostface, and then Ghostface gets into the street, and then is run over by Gale Weathers, who arrives with Chad and Minnie Meeks, which we have seen from the previous films, obviously. And they're working with Gale as her, like, the cameraman and her assistant and researcher. That's their roles with her from reporting stuff. And they pull off the mask of the deceased Ghostface who was run over. And they find out it's a man named Carl Gibbs who's an escaped mental patient, and that's the guy who Sydney saw earlier, who was very creepy. And while there, they talk to the faculty supervisor, Marco Davis, about Gibbs, and also mentioned a former patient who went by the name John Doe, who was scarred and had amnesia. And when Sydney holds up a picture of Stu she took from the call, he says, "Yeah, that's him. Yeah." So it seems like, Stu is not dead. It appears. And yeah. So but there is conversations about that, and could be using AI for the face and the voice, since AI obviously is a big thing these days. He incorporated that in here. That's interesting, in the conversation at least. But yeah, and if you haven't seen this movie, I won't spoil the very end, but yeah, the reveal of who's doing all the killings and all, it's a letdown. I'll just say that, it's a letdown. And yeah. It's quite underwhelming when you find out, and I'm like, really? That was it? That was the twist the whole time? Okay. And it's always nice to see Neve Campbell as Sydney. She's always great. Same with Gale Weathers, as Courtney Cox. And as well as the characters we've seen before, like, Chad and Mindy, they're fine. Obviously, this was supposed to star Melissa Barrera, Jenna Ortega. And I know they wanted Neve Campbell in Scream 6 also. But, Neve Campbell was like, unless I'm, you give me a part that was she was kind of disappointed with how Sydney was utilized in Scream 5. It seemed like just to help get people back into the theater for Scream, beyond just the franchise, and, David Arquette and Courtney Cox, got to have Neve Campbell. She thought her role was not that great in comparison to others, and so I don't know how far along they would have. At least they were in discussions, and that obviously did not pan out. But Melissa Barrera, she made comments about the whole Palestine and Israel war, and she mentioned being pro-Palestine, but then that kind of like got her blackball, which a lot of people found to be awful and terrible. And I'm not going to get political, but yeah, it's weird how she is saying the sentiment that pretty much most of Hollywood is saying on that war. Being for Palestine, a lot of people in Hollywood are for them. But I guess since she is fairly new and most people have not seen most of her work beyond Scream, and she was in Abigail, which was also another horror film. But beyond that, the Scream films are what she was known for, and I guess beyond that, most people don't know what she did before Scream. So Scream is like that's her role that everyone knows her for. And since she, I guess, is not a big enough star to be able to, I guess, give her thoughts and opinions like so many other well-known stars are, and be fairly fine. She's one of those who gets to be silenced, I guess, in terms of being removed from a project like this. I guess not silenced, but not being able to partake in, and therefore they have to create a brand new version. And I'm curious what the original Scream 7 was going to be with the Carpenter sisters. And I know I haven't been the biggest fan of the previous entries. And yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of this film either. I really think, since Wes Craven died, you absolutely can tell that there is a huge hole in this franchise. I mean, Matthew Lillard did a fine job, but yeah, is still, there was a lot of talk about how after this film came out, like they probably should not have actually advertised him as much as they did. Because yeah, it's a bit disappointing. I don't want to really say too much more about that, but yeah, it's just the way that was all handled. It's like, okay, because there are a lot of fans who really like Stu and Matthew Lillard. And since I guess technically he's like the only one who was not shot in the head, he gets to the possibility of him being alive is there, because he not only took a TV to the head but got electrocuted. And I guess theoretically the idea is he that Stu with that could possibly still be alive. Like he got electrocuted, and so his brain and everything still was active. But yeah, I don't know. So while the Sydney and her family, the three main people we see, they're all fine, for the most part. But all the other characters, people who are killed, like many of Tatum's friends, there isn't much to go off of in that sense. Like, when there wasn't much development, and I'm supposed to care about all these people. Like in the past, they try to do a good job of making you care about all these characters. Obviously, after the first one, it could be seen as a mixed bag of whether or not they do a good job of making you like the other characters or not. And Yeah, it's just they're very underdeveloped. Like, and some characters are something there, but then it's like we don't really get to know them too well, and that's an issue, I think. Um, but yeah, um, I would have seen this in the theater, but you know, lately it's like I might like once a month be able to go to the theater and watch something, and I wasn't able to see it at the very end of February when this came out, but I could have the very next week, but instead I saw the Peaky Blinders film, and obviously I didn't see any of the TV show because I don't have Netflix, and yeah, and some pirate sites aren't the greatest, so I don't really go there to watch shows and stuff, um, or anything. It's very rare when I do that. So that was my like entry to Peaky Blinders, and I thought the movie was fine. Um, Obviously, there are people who saw the whole thing, and their opinions were not so positive. Obviously, I've noticed. Um, but yeah, since I saw that, I wasn't going to be able to see this until the very end of March or the beginning of April. And I was kind of plotting out when I might be able to see it. I'm like, maybe April 1st or so. Well, March 31st, I found it was the last time within my vicinity to be able to see Scream 7 on the big screen. Which is annoying because, those that go to, like, all the the studios that are doing theatrical releases, like Paramount, which now owns Scream, well, except for Scream 4, that's a big thing in itself, but all these new films are all done with Paramount. So, yeah, Paramount is one of those studios that is continuing the theatrical release, and that's great. It used to be 90 days, so you'll be able to have a chance to see a movie for like 3 months. If it's successful, and this film was very successful every week, it kept making money. Which Scream it will, but even then, sometimes with like entry 6 or 7 or whatever, might not make as much as previous films. But this was doing quite well. It was made for 45 million, and I forget offhand how much it made, but box office, it made 213.8 million worldwide and 121.9 in America. So it was doing well, and yeah. But despite there supposedly always going to be a 45-day window, which obviously is half of 3 months, it left my state, or at least around where I live, by April 1st. And when I saw for April or March 31st and March 30th, it was many towns. It was a few towns over, like a couple hours. And it was like, I don't know if I want to drive or go, drive a few hours just to see a movie that is under 13 minutes. So yeah, being in there for a few hours just to leave, and very likely never will go to that theater ever again. Yeah, I didn't think that was worth it too much. So I waited for this to be out on 4K and Blu-ray, and it looks great. It looks amazing, picture quality and all. So on that front, fantastic. Outside of that, the film itself is kind of eh. But yeah, that's annoying that studio's supposed to keep it in theaters for 45 days, and just a little after like 30 days, like I think 32, 33 days or so, February 27th. Yeah, it's about that. 32, 33. Yeah, it's annoying. But, whatever. The acting overall was fine too, and also this is the first film that writer Kevin Williamson uh, directed. He co-wrote the script, and the story was uh, written by James Vanderbilt and guy Busick, and Williamson wrote the script, and he also was an executive producer, as was Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox. So yeah, Scream 7 for me is a mixed film. There are things I liked. It's always good to see Sydney and Gale. Yeah, Isabel May as Tatum was pretty good. Joel McHale as Mark, her Sydney's husband, was good, and everybody who played Tatum's friends were fine. I just wish they all had more to do. Like there was more interesting development, but who knows? Maybe there was quite a bit more, but then in subsequent drafts, stuff like that got cut into what we see now. And there are deleted scenes, and I've seen them, and they're fine. None off the top of my head really particularly comes to mind as, well, that should have been in the film. It's been a while since I watched it, and also just the film itself is really mostly fresh in my mind because I watched both the 4K and the Blu-ray for this. So yeah, the Blu-ray was the last one I checked, and it did fine. But yeah, there's the inside. So yeah, it's a mixed bag, sort of like the other two films for me. Yeah, for me, ever since Wes Craven passed away, it's just hasn't been as good, in my opinion. There's moments in these films, post Scream 4, there are fine moments, and I'm like, I just kind of wish some of those that, and I've talked about those films before, so you can just search my channel for them, but yeah. Anyway, Scream 7, some good kills. Nice to see old faces again, and Sydney's family, at least the ones we see, they're pretty cool. And yeah. If there's a Scream 8, hopefully it'll be better. And I remember hearing Kevin Williamson won't direct that one. I hope he'll still be involved, in writing and such. So, but hopefully the ending of that will be better than this one. That was just a disappointment. Because there are some moments in this film that are pretty good. It's just, character development was lacking for many of the people that when they die, you're supposed to really care about them. So yeah, I just wish the ending was better also with the reveal. But anyway, those are my thoughts on Scream 7, Scream 4. No, I really enjoyed Scream 4. That was really good. But yeah. Anyway, what are your thoughts if you've seen this film? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? You sort of like me? That you're mixed on some stuff? Let me know, and I shall talk to you later. All right. Take care.